And we are back here on My Country with Scott Cannon, Issues and Answers Friday on WLTH 1370 AM. That's 92.7 in the FM dial. If you're nasty, give me a call, 219-885-1371. That number again, 219-885-1371. If you got an opinion about what we've been talking about here. We just finished talking about Carly Russell. And like I said, I hope she gets the help that she needs. I think a lot of the young people are struggling mentally, and this has been a ticking time bomb that is going off on all of us. It really is. Well, another ticking time bomb that's going off on all of us is the rich are getting a lot richer. Yes, they are. The world's richest people you got to listen to this, right? In the first half of 2023, the world's richest 500 people added $852 billion to their wealth. Yes. $852 billion. $852 billion. Wow. This index is a daily ranking of the world's 500 richest people based on their net worth. The figures, according to Bloomberg, which was first reported, the year-to-date wealth increases are updated at the close of each trading day. In sum, each member of the club made an average of $14 million per day. Think about this. Each member made on average $14 million per day. Think about that. Okay? $1 million is, say, $50,000 a year over 20 years. Or $100,000 a year over 10 years. These dudes made $14 million per day. And I guess probably a few women as well. Over the first 6 months of the year, 2023. Now, Bloomberg reported that this time frame was the best 6 months for the ultra rich since the last half of 2020, which is when they made all the money when the economy began its comeback from COVID-19's financial hit. As of last Wednesday morning, Tesla CEO and Twitter owner Elon Musk led the billionaire pack with a net worth of $247 billion. Think about that. Elon Musk is worth $247 billion. To put that into context, HUD has said that it would cost $20 billion to permanently end homelessness in America. $20 billion. That's what HUD says it would take to end homelessness in America. Elon Musk has $247 billion. In second place, the French business magnate Bernard Arnault is valued at $200 billion, and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is third at $155 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook and Instagram parent company Meta, is ninth at $104 billion. And look, he's considered poor because he's $143 billion behind Elon Musk. Oh, I guess he lives in the equivalent of the projects of the billionaire strata. When we're talking about, on this show, when I'm talking about the choices that our politicians make and that our society makes to have poverty, like you can see here, right here in Gary in Northwest Indiana, in the richest country in the history of the world, where people like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos can make so much money that they can literally spend millions whenever they want going on space trips, go up to space for 4 minutes, while at the same time making sure that their workers can't unionize and don't make a living wage. You know there's something wrong with that. You know there's something wrong with that. We all have to fundamentally know that there's something wrong with that. And there is no, well, they worked hard. You think these people work harder than the average person? You can't possibly think that people who are up on a roof, and now we're in historically hot temperatures because the billionaire class are killing us all with their companies that are emitting carbon emissions at historic levels. You can't think that people who are up on a roof when it's 110 degrees outside are working not as hard as Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. You can't possibly believe that. You can't possibly believe that. And this is why you're seeing so much militant labor action. The Teamsters are going on strike possibly on July 31st against UPS. If that happens, we're going to cover it here. Right now, we see the Screen Actors Guild and the writers in Hollywood, they're going on strike. A lot of people think that when they're talking about the Screen Actors Guild, that they're just talking about Tom Cruise and Jennifer Lopez and all these people making $10s and $20 million a movie. No, there are people who are not making enough to have health insurance. Hold on, caller. There's a lot of people who, I think I saw Susan Sarandon and the vice president of the LA branch of the Screen Actors Guild talking about this earlier today. You need to make $26,000 a year to qualify for insurance with Screen Actors Guild, and their wages are suppressed for most actors so that they can't even afford that. They can't even afford to have health insurance, most of them. It is solely due to the greed of the super wealthy class that we are seeing living conditions continue to degenerate for the working class and the poor in our society. We want to look at everything else and everybody else, and we want to look up to these people, these billionaires, these corporate technocrats, and all these other people, and these politicians who are getting wealthier by the day, while at the same time the earth is dying, and so is the working class. We're seeing the mental strain of our current situation taking its toll. The pandemic was just sort of a match that lit the flame, but we were already going to this place. We were already going in this direction. And if we don't take some very strong actions very soon, maybe a general strike, it might take a general strike. It might take not only the Screen Actors Guild and Teamsters and all these other, it might take all of us having to just say, look, we're going to shut down society until we are recognized as working class people, hell, as living people here on this planet before something actually gets accomplished. Let me get this call. Hello, caller.
Okay, Scott.
What's up?
How you doing, good man?
It's all good, brother.
Okay, let's go back to Elon Musk for a minute, okay?
What about him?
Now, we know that it says that he wasted like $245 billion. We understand that, okay?
Right.
But now, however, about a couple of weeks ago, did you read that article where he put, now I don't know how on the hell or how he get this kind of money, 240. Did you read about that? He put first the article came out said he's put 100 trillion into AI. You know, the artificial intelligence.
Right.
But then it came back around after I read it a few days later. Then they said he ought to put 15 trillion into AI. Now I've been hearing too many different things, but I'm not gonna doubt that 245 billion. That's nothing. But 100 trillion, then it went down to 15 trillion into AI. Do something sound fishy there?
Of course.
Okay, let's move on further.
Yes.
Okay. That's nothing. Look, you talking about ticking time bomb. Look. The ticking time bomb, the ozone layer, all this different freon, all this going up to space. Now, I know you done heard about the ozone level being depleted. You know,
Okay, of course.
Some ways off of us, right?
Right.
And you know you done heard in the Bible, it won't be water but fire next time, right?
Ooh.
You heard of that before?
You already know.
Okay, look, man. These heat waves coming in, I'm telling you, mankind have destroyed himself. That's just the way it is. They mess around up there in space. They going up there. They doing what they don't know. They don't know what the hell they doing.
That's right.
They messing with God's creation. Look, all I'm going to say to you, back in the Bible days, you remember as a child about God told Noah to build an ark?
Yeah.
Okay, remember all those fools was out there laughing at Noah talking about he was building an ark on dry land. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
He forever laughed at Noah, but when them dark clouds and that rain started coming and started flowing, they holler, oh, Noah, let us in. And Noah sat there and say, look, I don't have the key. God got the key. I can't let you in.
I heard
so
that.
all those saying, mankind destroyed his home self back then. Hell, he destroyed himself again now.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying, good man.
It's all good. Thank you for your call.
Okay, bye.
All right, now. I agree. We're destroying ourselves again. It is once again greed. It is absolutely greed and selfishness, once again, that is destroying us here on this planet. Like I told you guys last week, 100 companies are responsible for 71% of carbon emissions. 100 companies. They get all of us about driving a car that has this type of emissions. We got to make sure our car has this emission standard. 100 companies are responsible for the overwhelming majority of that. What's coming from our little putt-putts is nothing in comparison to what's coming from the Chinese coal company, from the Saudi Arabian oil company, Aramco, from ConocoPhillips, from BP, and ExxonMobil. Zero, like it is nothing. We could all become vegetarians tomorrow and recycle till we're perfect. And as long as we keep letting these billionaire corporations and these huge entities continue to destroy the planet, then we are doomed. The seeds are sown for our destruction. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have, probably the biggest issue that we have, is that our politicians are owned lock, stock, and barrel by these people. Because if you look at what's popular, if you look at what the public actually wants, a wealth tax. The American people want a wealth tax. 75% of Americans support a wealth tax on the wealthy elites in our society. 75%. But Joe Biden's not going to fight for that. Joe Biden told his donors that nothing would fundamentally change with him as president. Nothing will fundamentally change. He told his donors that nothing will fundamentally change. This is the man who wrote the Clinton crime bill that enriched the prison industrial complex and the prison companies. He wrote the Patriot Act, which has increased the mass surveillance state. He wrote the bankruptcy bill that made it harder for people with college debt and all kinds of other debt to get out of debt. That's why they used to call Joe Biden the senator from MBNA. That's a bank. And we see how his son has parlayed his father's power as vice president and now as president into a very big salary with the corrupt Ukrainian energy firm Burisma, where he was making $83,000 a month at a no-show job. This is the supposed good guy that black people tell me I should vote for. Donald Trump's son-in-law is making billions for the Saudis. Has a $2 billion deal with the Saudis. So this is why once again we have to start looking outside of the paradigms that have been set for us. Just voting for the Democrats, just voting for the Republicans is not going to get us out of this mess, folks. It's going to take a certain initiative to rise up and collectively strategize to start dismantling some of these systems. And a lot of people are talking about a general strike. And the more I hear about it, the more I think we may have to do something that big. We don't have a lot of time. But no, voting for the Democrats and Republicans will not get us out of here. They are owned and controlled by these corporate elites. That's why we can't tax these people. These people are blowing billions of dollars just going to space on joy rides, and we can't tax these people. Now, Robert Rubin actually made a video talking about why all the narratives that these people put out as to why we cannot tax them and create a better society for ourselves, like you see in many countries of the world, is all nonsense. Take a listen to this.
Some politicians are calling for higher taxes on the rich. And naturally, these proposals have unleashed a torrent of opposition, mostly from the rich. Here are the 12 biggest myths they are propounding. Myth: a top marginal tax rate applies to all of a person's total income or wealth.
Why aren't you giving 70% of your income to the government? You could.
You're going to tax 70% of your paycheck.
Wrong. It would only apply to dollars in excess of a certain level. The 70% income tax rate proposed by Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would apply only to dollars in excess of $10 million a year. The 2% wealth tax proposed by Elizabeth Warren would apply only to wealth in excess of $50 million. Myth: raising taxes on the rich is a far left idea.
She wants to radically tax the rich.
Taxing rich people, that's an old saw from the left.
Baloney. 70% of Americans, including 54% of Republicans, support raising taxes on families making more than $10 million a year. And expecting the rich to pay their fair share is a traditional American idea. From 1930 to 1980, the average top marginal income tax rate was 78%. From 1951 to 1963, it exceeded 90%. Again, only on dollars in excess of a very high threshold. Even considering all deductions and tax credits, the very rich paid over half of their top incomes in taxes. Myth: a wealth tax is unconstitutional.
Bad idea.
And it's likely unconstitutional.
Sounds great, not constitutional, I don't think.
Rubbish. Most locales already impose an annual wealth tax on the value of people's homes, the main source of household wealth for most people. It's called the property tax. The rich hold most of their wealth in stocks and bonds. So why should these forms of wealth escape taxation? Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to lay and collect taxes. Myth: when taxes on the rich are cut, they invest more and everyone benefits. When taxes on the rich are increased, economic growth slows.
The frightening thing about high marginal tax rates is that it leads us into a low productivity economy.
They're going to stop creating jobs. If you raise the interest rates, they'll stop investing money. They'll stop borrowing money. And that has a trickle-down effect.
Utter baloney. Trickle-down economics is a cruel joke. Donald Trump, George W. Bush, and Ronald Reagan all cut taxes on the rich, and nothing trickled down. There's no evidence that higher taxes on the rich slows economic growth. To the contrary, when the top marginal tax rate has been high, between 71 and 92%, growth has averaged 4% a year. But when the top rate has been low, between 28 and 39%, growth has averaged only 2.1%. Myth. When you cut taxes on corporations, they invest more and create more jobs.
Will stimulate investment domestically, stimulate the jobs that the economy needs.
Wrong again. After Trump and the Republicans lowered the corporate tax rate in 2018, America's largest corporations cut more jobs than they created. They used their tax savings largely to increase their stock prices by buying back their own shares of stock, enriching executives and wealthy investors, but providing no real benefit to the economy. Myth. The rich already pay more than their fair share in taxes.
When she says the thing about fair share, you know, the top 1% of earners pay 40% of income taxes.
The top 1% already pay 37% of all federal income taxes.
This is misleading because it focuses only on income taxes, leaving out the large and growing tax burden on lower income Americans. Payroll taxes, state and local sales taxes, and property taxes take bigger bites out of the pay of lower income families than higher income. Myth. The rich already pay capital gains taxes.
The very, very top pay capital gains tax.
We already have a 30%, 20 to 30% tax on capital gains.
Misleading. Rich families avoid paying capital gains taxes by passing their wealth on to their heirs. In fact, the largest share of big estates transferred from generation to generation are unrealized capital gains that have never been taxed. Myth. The estate tax is a death tax that hits millions of Americans.
Does death trigger another grab from the government? It's so un-American, it just turns my stomach.
She wants another bite at the apple. And when you die, even another bite at the apple, 40% worth.
Baloney. The current estate tax, which only applies to assets in excess of $11 million or $22 million for couples, affects fewer than 2,000 families. Myth. If taxes are raised on the wealthy, they will find ways to evade them, so very little money is going to be raised.
Billionaires will go somewhere else, multimillionaires will go somewhere else.
So you raise these taxes and people shift their investments to avoid higher taxes.
More rubbish. For example, a 2% wealth tax, as proposed by Senator Elizabeth Warren, would raise around $2.75 trillion over the next decade, with very little tax evasion, according to research. A 70% tax on incomes over $10 million would raise close to $720 billion over the next 10 years. Myth. The only reason to raise taxes on the wealthy is to collect revenue.
No one really believes that it would either bring in more revenues.
It's not just because you object to the existence of rich people. You're not trying to hurt them. You just want to pay for more stuff.
No. Although these proposals would generate lots of revenue and help us reduce the national debt while investing in schools, roads, and all the other things we need, another major purpose is to reduce inequality and thereby safeguard democracy against oligarchy. Myth. It's unfair to raise taxes on the wealthy.
Seems to me like it's more a debate about punishing the rich, about punishing success.
The most successful are not only paying their fair share, they're paying the most. Pay your fair share? What are you talking about?
Actually, it's unfair not to raise taxes on the rich. For the last 40 years, most Americans have seen almost no growth in their incomes at all, while the incomes of a minority at the top have skyrocketed. We're rapidly heading toward a society dominated by a handful of super rich, many of whom have never worked a day in their lives. More than 60% of wealth in America is now inherited. Myth. They earned it. It's their money.
I think if people earn money, they should be able to hold on to it.
And be able to do as they see fit with their newfound hard-earned cash.
Hogwash. It's their country, too. They couldn't maintain their fortunes without what America provides: national defense, police, laws, courts, political stability, and the Constitution. They couldn't have got where they are without other things America provides: education, infrastructure, and a nation that respects private property. And to argue it's their money also ignores a lot of other ways America has bestowed advantages on the rich. Everything from bailing out Wall Street bankers when they get into trouble to subsidizing the research of big pharma. So the next time you hear one of these myths, know the truth. If you found our video informative,
that was very illuminating from Robert Reich. As you can see, all the sort of propaganda as to why we cannot tax the rich and save our democracy, save our planet, and take care of the working class and the poor in this country is nonsense. It's pure nonsense. It is solely because we do not have the political will to do so. And if our politicians don't have that will, then apparently we're going to have to, again, stop donating to their campaigns, stop voting for these people. I've been voting third party for pretty much a decade now. I refuse to give my vote to these people whose sole purpose is to maintain a status quo that creates a two-tiered, hell, probably even a three-tiered society. The haves, the have-nots, and the have even lesses. Forget that. All right, folks, when I get back, happy happies.